I'll try to keep it on the short side. You know, I've found for many years of doing, primarily doing astrology, that astrology is an interesting thing because on the one hand, it can, I'll give an analogy. I have often said humorously in mind that one of the reasons for getting a PhD in psychology is because, which I don't have, is because you understand so much about your process that no one can penetrate your defenses because you got it down. Now, not every PhD in psychology is like that, of course, but I've met more than a few. And more for me, this is all about the heart. It's all about the heart. It's all about emotion. It's all about loving. I've been trying to work on myself all my life. The thing that is working the most is the thing I didn't understand, which is to just love and accept myself the way I am. That all the standards that we're taught to live up to, have to do, have to achieve, have to, all that, that's not really the point. So to me, in the greater sense, when you have Pluto and Capricorn, it's kind of blowing all that up. And it is, I think I said it last time, you know, I realized not that recently that the first time in my life that I heard being told that I wasn't doing something the right way was about 2 minutes after I was born. And I think this is the experience of a very common experience in our world, in our culture. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just the way that it's been, that there's something wrong with us. One of our primary religions is that we are born in sin, for example. The new world, the new reality to me is turning that around. And it's not, I live here in Ashland, and you know what a lot of people here are what I would call white light territory, where everything is wonderful all the time and we don't think about anything negative because we're bringing it onto ourselves and all that, whatever our definition of negative is. And no, that doesn't work. It's about just descending into the darkness and bringing the light into the darkness, including my personal darkness, the personal experiences I've had. I realize more and more, whatever I feel, whatever emotions I have, whatever, if I'm too angry or I'm too sad or I'm depressed or I'm with grief or whatever, if I could really look at my soul history, I would understand why I'm that way. It's not because there's something wrong with me. I have had experiences that those are the conclusions that I have reached, or others have reached and let me know about, and I have accepted their conclusions as my own. And so it comes from tremendous self-acceptance that whatever I'm feeling, you know, as a person in my life says, if you find the one that can't love something about yourself, then love the one that can't love that. The bottom line is love and acceptance. The bottom line in the universe is love. And it's us aligning ourselves to that. We're going through all this, all these things, all these experiences for reasons which we can't really see the big picture very often as human, and yet we are. And we have that experience from time to time. And it's true all the time, we just don't see it all the time. And that's where we're heading, into this acceptance that whatever I feel here from the heart is what I need to do. If I'm angry, I need to express it, not by blowing up in someone's face, which I have been known to do in the past, but by saying, you know, something doesn't feel right here, and something you're saying is causing me to feel angry. And this is quite a change for me. And I look at this as coming out of the lessons of astrology, or the things that astrology points out, and applying them to my individual life, emotionally. And the point is Lev, in the heart. In other words, I can know a million pieces of information about things, but if I am not showing up as a kind and supporting person, then what's the point? I guess that wasn't really a fair thing to say. There is a point, because the information can lead me to the place where I realize I need to apply this. Because if we're really all one, then even the people I firmly disagree with, they're still divine. You know, Pat quoted Martin Luther King, who's a great influence in my life, and one of his quotes that really blew me away when I first heard it was, he was asked if he hated his enemies, as he himself had described them, vicious racists. And he said, I love my enemy, I hate his deeds. And lately I've been realizing I don't even want to say I hate his deeds. I can say his actions don't resonate with who I see he really is and where I want to operate from. Because I'm clear that the underlying cause of all of these things in all people is wounds and hurt. Experiences that we've had, having been denied, not seen, mistreated, treated badly, treated poorly, not giving an opportunity. And it creates anger, frustration, hatred even. And we don't know how to respond to that or relate to that. And Lev is about learning how. And it doesn't mean for me to allow somebody to abuse me or treat me as a victim. In there, I need to speak out. But it is understanding why they're operating that way. And even more important for me, that it probably doesn't have anything to do with me, even if they're in my face, even if they're projecting it heavily on me. So I didn't want to get this long-winded. But this is my number one focus at this point. I am changing myself. I'm changing myself. And I'm realizing that me sitting in my living room, talking to an occasional person here and there, and changing myself and developing my self-love and radiating this is making a major contribution to the planet, even if I only say it to 3 people. Because collectively, this is what we need to do. We're all on the same team. We're not. This polarity that we have now is an expression of about as far apart as you can get. And so we're needing to learn how to live with differences of opinion, outlook, perspective, ways of life, and have respect for them, and not this side hating this side and the other side hating that side. And I don't find it easy, but I'm really clear. This looks like the way to change what we've been living with for a very long time.
Thank you very much, Steve. Patricia, would you like to go next, please?
I'd like to open up for Q&A and hear what others have to say at the moment. If that's okay?
Yep, that's fine. Just unmute yourself. Yes, go ahead, Sue.
Patricia, I'm curious about that chart, because I pulled it up, that chart you were talking about of 2020, January of 2020, because I just pulled it up and it's got, wow. But, a lot of emphasis around that Pluto.
Patricia, unmute yourself. Unmute. That's it, yeah. Patricia, unmute yourself, please. Oh, I can do it for you. I can do it. I'll see, because you're sharing your screen. Just one sec. Patricia, unmute. There you go. Go ahead, Patricia.
Is this, are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
So this is the chart. This is what we're leading up to, which is the next Pluto-Saturn synodic cycle. So we are in the culmination of the last one. Hold on, I have some notes on this. That was, it started at 2 degrees. Oh, what's happening to the sound? It was 2 degrees Libra, started in 1982, in November of 1982. So we're, you know, I was contemplating the cycles of history that have happened in that time, but, you know, looking at this chart is you know, so much Capricorn, but what we're coming out of, and other things that are occurring at this time, the south node of Pluto. Oh, hold on a second. I need to find my notes. Right, aren't we in the same, won't this, yeah, the south nodes of Pluto and Saturn, this particular synodic cycle is going to happen on those south nodes. I mean, there's just a lot to say about this. I don't know if now is the time, but I did want to put it up. You can grab, I just put it for New York. You can grab this time, but to look at what we're heading into, because when we talk about deconditioning and shadow and deconstructing reality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you know, I believe we're in the nascent stage of it, and we're in shock. And I'm not being pessimistic. I am being my sad self, but I'm saying, look what we're heading into. Look at the cycle we're heading into. Now, I don't know how to get back to the screen I was on before.
Patricia, just click on stop share. You should see it there somewhere.
There's nothing on my screen. I'm sorry.
Okay, hang on a second. I should be able to
At
do
the
it.
top, there might be where it says options.
You have to take your cursor and scroll down and it'll pop up.
No, I somehow, hold on, stop share.
Yep,
Okay, there we go. I did it.
Okay, Wendy, go ahead.
Listening to everybody so far, I was thinking about, well, the word, what Steve said about that doesn't resonate. That is very helpful. And also what you said, Patricia, about like being gentle with ourselves and also being mindful about being inclusive. And typically I'm generally inclusive, but I've been very reactive, especially on Facebook. And I have a south node in Sag, so when I get really triggered, my mouth opens. And people from high school and people that are very, very religious and that see what's happening is exactly the way it should be, and all of this. And, you know, I disagree with that. And I think hearing the word "I don't resonate" is actually, that just helps me so much, because I'm not resonating, but I'm also not fully resonating with myself. And that's why I'm reacting, because I'm feeling powerless right now. And I live 20 minutes outside of DC, you know, actually 40, but like, oh my God, I guess I'm not as much shock as I was 3 weeks ago, because I keep thinking something's going to happen. It's going to save us or something, but it's kind of daunting. The whole thing's really daunting.
Can I share something with you?
Please.
Before 2008, when Pluto went into Capricorn, my inner guide said to me, well, in their own way, the shit's coming. And they said to me then, every morning you need to wake up and you need to discern what belongs to you and what doesn't. And then they said, because it's going down. And then, you know, Pluto went into Capricorn and the economic crisis, and here we find ourselves today. So, yes, part of the difficulty of being conscious is that, especially for the Pluto Virgo generation, and I would say carrying on into the Pluto Libras, that the internalization of reality in an effort to make sense of it, to digest it, to transform it, is a natural part of those generations' archetypes.
Mhm.
So, you know, and this is what I mean by the transiting Virgo Pisces axis. So we're not just looking at a further development of our discernment as it relates to, you know, what's fake news, what's real news, is somebody really telling the truth or not? But we're actually, you know, needing to discern what belongs to us and what doesn't. What do we need to digest? And boundary, or healthy boundary, is the outcome of that, right? So, or healthy boundary is what happens in place of where you've been too porous. So I think this is an essential thing to be focusing on, as well as when we, you know, take in the external reality, bring it inside. What belongs to me? Own that, work with that, and the rest of it isn't yours. I mean, there's a liberation in that. We are not wholly responsible for, you know, everyone on the planet to a certain degree. So that's my thought.
Thanks, Patricia. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say that on the 25th of December, we're going to be having an astrology pattern taking place between Uranus, Jupiter, Saturn, and Venus. And these planets will be trine and sextile to each other, forming a really very positive pattern for change, but fairly easy change. So, anybody else have a question? Steve.
I'd like to comment on what Wendy was talking about. And there is a lot of anger in the air, on all sides. Now, why? To me, primarily, because we are moving into, we're not moving, we are in uncharted waters. Everybody's, you know, we have a life plan. We have a life. We think we know what's going to happen. We think we know what we want to have. In other words, I got my house, I've got my family, I've got my career, da da da. And all of a sudden, it's not working that way. So, because we don't own our emotional patterns, we tend to become collectively victims. It's somebody's fault. It's the immigrant's fault. It's the 1% fault. There are human things that are going on that I feel have a lot to do with what's been going on. But people's fears, their anger, their feelings, for where they come from, they're valid. Wendy, when you react, that's valid. Your reactivity is valid. What I'm learning is don't take it, for me to learn how not to take it out on other people, but to sit with it. I'm feeling angry relative to what you believe in and how you feel and what your passion is. You have good reason to feel that way. And people are saying a lot of things, you know, people are unfriending people because they don't like the way they vote, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not saying that's bad. That's what's happening right now. I just want to add, you know, to what Patricia said about, well, you know, I don't know exactly how, I don't remember exactly how you said it, kind of like your guy said, the shit's going to hit the fan. I would just add to that, and even though it's difficult, that's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's necessary in our evolving. And I'm not saying I like it, and I'm not saying I'm having fun with it, but it's got to play out. And the part of it for us is that we can separate ourselves or detach ourselves from that reality so that we understand this stuff's just happening. It's, and, you know, to add, I think I'm restating a little bit of what Patricia just said. It's not necessarily about me. It's stuff that's happening. It needs to happen. But does it relate to my path or my unfolding? I'll ask this briefly. I know what's happening with me. I'm finding it more and more, I won't even say difficult. I increasingly can't even relate to the concept of reality that the majority of the people around seem to consider reality. It's like I'm being moved into another state of consciousness. I know by talking to a lot of people, this is happening a lot because we are stepping into a heightened state of consciousness on the planet. And there are people that are going to open up to that first. That's part of why those people are here. And it's going to, just that is going to attract a reactivity, because it's like, to people that are feeling this inside and are freaked out by it, it's just more of the same. One more person telling me the same thing. That's what we're feeling. I think it is really important that we accept and honor and validate what we feel, even when we don't like it. Maybe I don't want to be angry, but if I feel angry, it's okay. And I can find a place in me that understands why it's okay and to hold the space for it, because it's part of my unfolding, my growth. I'm experiencing it as a lot of repressed and denied traumas that I have experienced in my journey that are surfacing so that I can face them. And that's very much up now. I feel it's a service to the whole planet for any of us that can hold the space of what we're feeling.
Right, like a collective purging. Yeah.
Yes, there's a collective purge, emotional purge going on.
Mm-hmm.
And many people are not equipped or know how to handle this. So in some ways, we're helping as we learn to do it.
Steve, thank you. Any other questions? Comments?
I have a quick a question as to you all as the older generation. How do you give hope to the younger generations? Because I've seen so many of them, they just don't feel like they have a future. And I think that's a lot of the reason why they act out the way they do, because, you know, it comes across to them. And I've heard this out of a lot of the older generation's mouth is, well, I'll be dead and gone. And that comes across to them like they don't care about what's happening, you know, and what type of future we're going to have. So how do you talk to them and give them hope?
What generation are you, Wanda?
Pluto and Virgo.
Oh, you're Pluto Virgo. Oh, you're, so you would be talking about, when you say younger generation, you talking Pluto Libra, Pluto Scorpio, younger.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even our generation itself, I have the Uranus Pluto conjunction. So
Yeah. Yeah, me too. You and I are the same. You know, I tend to think that what we see happening now and what will ensue from here is it was the Pluto Libra's wake-up call. I think in general, and I'm generalizing, highly distracted by their technology and the permutations of relatedness and all of that. But I think within that generation, they have they have some distant archetypal memory of utopia, be it, what they would say what I would say ancient Rome, ancient Greece, probably going more back to Greece, if we looked at them as a soul group reincarnating with some memories, which is what they're striving to manifest. What I've noticed with generations is that, there's 3 stages of each generation. One, when they're born and they bring a certain energy onto the planet at that time. When they start coming of age, which is another mark that they make on society, and when they come into power. So those 3 stages. So right now, I believe I heard it from so many Pluto Libras in my session room and when I've been out lecturing, that they are like, oh my God, now we finally know what we were born for. So they have some of that flame, they have some of that inherent idealism. I do worry about the Pluto Scorpios, but I do and I don't. To a certain degree, to me, the Pluto Scorpios are the ones that when they were born brought in Armageddon consciousness. So because of their soul's experiences, their collective soul's experiences where they've experienced these complete wipeouts. But right, and as they were coming of age, the whole world changed. Their social awareness is shaped really, when you look at it, by September 11th, and then as they're entering the workforce, economic crisis. So it's pretty doom and gloom. I get it for them. But we also have to realize that they are yet to, as they're now kind of coming of age, they have yet to come into power. And these coming of age experiences, we don't know what they're going to be able to bring us until they come into power. These conditions will be exactly what will shape the solution that they are then able to enact, if that makes any sense. So I would say to you, just like any young person or anybody in your life, and I had this conversation on 2012 with a bunch of Pluto Libras and Pluto Scorpios around a what they called an Armageddon campfire. We sat up all night talking, and I basically questioned them because I wanted to know what their thinking was. And then I felt the responsibility to hold some kind of hope for them, especially the Pluto Scorpios. I can't say that enough. So I would say, yeah, cultivate the sense of hope, cultivate their own creative response, because they are going to be the ones, that Pluto Scorpio generation in particular, the most resourceful and possibly the ones that will show us the correct and efficient use of resources.
Great. Thank you, Patricia.
Yeah, I'd love to just say that I counsel a lot of Pluto Scorpios, and their polarity point for us, the ones that have been coming to me are, well, and I'm in Los Angeles, a very creative center, are very self-empowered and have big jobs in entertainment and are trying to, make good documentaries and really help awaken people and use their talents, and they're strong. They're strong. And I don't find them as hysterical or depressed about what's going on as just determined. A couple of them have said to each other, no Christmas presents, all the money's going to Standing Rock. Like, no Christmas presents? I'm like, yeah, and it's kind of spreading now in those millennials. But for me, when I look at those Pluto Scorpios, I see that Saturn, Neptune, Uranus conjunction in Capricorn, and some of it happened in Sag. That whole thing is wow. Just, I've got my eye on that because, yeah, what are they here to do? That's a lot. And I think we saw the viral internet, Arab Spring kind of possibility of that Saturn-Uranus conjunction that many of them have. So I'm very hopeful with that generation that they have huge capacity to change things.
Thank you, Tashi. We have about 6 minutes left. So, Steve, any final thoughts?
If you wanted to have a generation that was going to be coming of age and running the world at a time when the entire world was going to break apart and transform, you couldn't ask for a better generation than Pluto and Scorpio. In their souls, that's what they expect, and that's what they want, and that's what they're prepared for, and that's what they're determined for. Coming up on this planet, we're going to see major crises or breakdown, in my opinion, in the whole economic system that runs the planet called capitalism and its endless consumption of resources. It's been quite interesting being around a few Native people recently and hearing the difference in their perspective on the use of the resources of the planet. And a tremendous global change in climate and weather, which is going to thoroughly transform all human behavior and possibilities. That's coming up. And it seems like we're not, why does it have to be this great crisis, Scorpio? Because collectively we don't seem to be getting it any other way. Didn't have to be this way, but we collectively have allowed it to get into a circumstance where that's what has to happen. I personally am not going to be surprised if Trump does not make it through 4 years of the presidency. And he might make it through, but I won't be surprised if he doesn't. And that itself is going to create some kind of great crisis or shock. We're being shaken to wake up. Pluto and Scorpio are the ones that can relate to this, in my opinion.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking too is that they haven't had their Saturn returns, most of them. So they're still coming into their power. And my little sister, my nephew, a really good friend of mine, they're all really powerhouses.
Thanks, Wendy. We
And
have
their
4 minutes
Saturn
left.
return is going to be in that Capricorn with the, they were born with the conjunction in Capricorn to begin with. And so they're going to have the Saturn-Pluto conjunction kicking all that up too.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm going to have my Saturn return in 2020 with all of that stuff in my 8th house. And so I'm pretty darn apprehensive about this stuff. I really, really relate to what Steve said about the radical love approach. And I understand all that. And it brings up the question about hope then. How do we keep hope while simultaneously possessing that radical love approach that basically accepts the evil in the world as being provoked by misunderstanding and woundedness, wounded children, rather than there being bad people out there. I totally understand that. And at the same time, how do you keep hope in a world where they're all pervasive, so it seems?
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's a matter of getting in touch with one's inner mission or purpose. It doesn't matter. I can't say that I'm very Libran. I can't say I'm living from this space consistently, but it really doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. It's a matter of knowing inside what I'm here to do. And I'm simply here, and I don't mean to make this sound mechanical, but I'm simply here to carry out as best I can what I signed up for. And the hope is in that. I find through doing that I kind of synchronistically get connected from time to time with other people that have a similar awareness. And just knowing that somebody else comes from what I call my planet, creates reassurance. I experience reassurance and hope from that. The knowing, I mean, also in the long run, no matter what happens, consciousness is going to prevail. And really sinking into that, it's going to prevail. Everything that happens is necessary. And
Right.
it may not have anything to do with me. I have to live through it. It's an opportunity to deepen love. How can I find a way to love things that don't even seem lovable to me? Because everything has love as its root. And so I can deepen myself, expand my circle. And I don't claim to have the answers to that all the time. It keeps me growing.
Timothy, I just want to echo something that Steve said, which is very important when we're talking about the dynamics of trauma. People deal with trauma better when they are active, you know, when they study first responders, as opposed to the general populace that experiences, let's say, a mass trauma. First responders can have a fallout later, but they also can have a resiliency because they were in the trenches doing something. And I think that is an important part of this dynamic, and especially for you Pluto Scorpios, because you're so much, I love working with you guys, by the way, so much of go for the gusto, go for the juggler, nothing